Estamos grabando.
I thought
We
I hit it.
We're
We're
recording
now. Yep.
Okay, so for everyone who didn't have the opportunity of joining us live, but are now joining the recording, you haven't missed all that much. We've gone through our kind of agenda. We've kind of regrounded in our timeline for budgeting and planning, and we've gone through our school priorities. They're all in the deck that's available with this. And now we're launching off into kind of our priority areas.
Si apenas tienen la oportunidad de unirnos a través de la grabación, no se han perdido de mucho. Hasta ahora estamos empezando a hablar de la agenda y las prioridades que tenemos dentro de nuestra escuela. Ahora vamos a empezar a hablar un poco de las instalaciones.
Okay, facilities. I hope everyone had an opportunity to read the email that Emily and I sent yesterday as an update to our search for our forever home. If we look at facilities, our priorities are to pursue our long-term facility. And when we say that, we really talk about a forever home, a place where we can establish ourselves for generations of San Franciscans.
Si tuvieron la oportunidad de leer el correo que enviamos ayer, ahí mostramos y hablamos de cómo va esa búsqueda de nuestro hogar para siempre, nuestra casa y la casa que está proyectada a darle hogar a muchos sanfranciscanos durante muchos años por venir.
For us, this means acquiring a facility that is centrally located. We're a citywide school, and we, to fulfill our vision, we need a site that is accessible across the city.
Lo más importante es que estamos buscando un hogar para siempre que esté ubicado de una forma central, esté ubicado dentro del rango de la ciudad para que todos puedan acceder a ella.
We also need a facility that can accommodate our what we call our program, and whether that has to do with our academic program, related to that, our inquiry program, our physical education program, our arts program. We need a facility that really allows us to fully explore the unique program we bring to public education here in San Francisco.
Otra de las prioridades que tenemos para la instalación es que pueda responder a nuestras necesidades de acomodación respecto a nuestro programa de indagación, nuestro programa de arte. Estamos muy enfocados en que esta instalación pueda proveer esa oportunidad de desarrollar nuestro programa como merece.
We also need a long-term home that can grow with us.
También necesitamos un hogar para siempre que pueda crecer de la misma forma que crece New School.
And be able to house our full K-8 school.
Y que nos pueda dar la posibilidad de crecer de quinto, de preescolar a octavo.
As most of you can imagine, finding a school site in a city like San Francisco is no small task.
Como lo pueden imaginar, encontrar una instalación para la escuela en la ciudad de San Francisco no es una tarea fácil.
And over the past 4 to 5 years, we have been not only pursuing or searching for that building, but building our capacity to be able to successfully not just search, but acquire and develop a building of that size and scale.
En los últimos 5 años no solo hemos intentado buscar ese lugar, pero también hemos intentado construir esa capacidad para poder crecer de esa forma.
In that, we have identified sites, entered into negotiations, but like many things, we have not yet been successful at acquiring a building.
En eso hemos identificado lugares, hemos buscado otro tipo de espacios, pero todavía no hemos encontrado un edificio que responda a nuestras necesidades.
Real estate in general is challenging in San Francisco. The pandemic increased those challenges, as did kind of the changes in the real estate market recently.
La situación inmobiliaria en San Francisco no es la mejor. A raíz de la pandemia muchas cosas han cambiado y pues también ha hecho que eso sea un poco más complicado.
And yet, we are committed to finding our forever home. And we will, as our letter said, we are continue to build our capacity to be able to successfully acquire and develop a facility and continue to pursue it.
Pero de igual forma estamos comprometidos en exitosamente poder crecer y encontrar un lugar que pueda responder a esas necesidades que tenemos.
In the meantime, we are going to make the most of our current site.
Durante este tiempo, entonces, debemos hacer lo más que podamos para poder aprovechar lo que tenemos en este espacio en el que estamos ahora.
940 Filbert Street is an amazing building, and it offers us a lot by way of the fact that we can be a unified campus, K through 8, and realize much of our program.
Hemos logrado hacer muchas cosas en 940 Filbert Street y pues hemos intentado unificar nuestra comunidad a través de el preescolar y el octavo grado.
And yet, it was developed as a preschool, that's the annex, and an elementary school. And so making it a K through 8, both an elementary and a middle school, will require us to invest some time and energy into making it the school we need.
La instalación en la que estamos ahora fue construida solamente para preescolar a quinto. Entonces, poderla diseñar y equipar para que sea una escuela de preescolar a octavo tiene ciertos retos.
One of the largest challenges we face at 940 Filbert is that it's very far north for many families.
Uno de las situaciones más difíciles que tenemos es que esta locación en este momento está muy en el norte para la mayoría de las familias que pertenecen a nuestra comunidad.
So one way in which we hope to ensure accessibility is providing transportation for those whose commute are significant.
Y una de las formas que nos aseguramos de que las personas puedan acceder a la escuela es dando transporte a las personas que se encuentran en otras áreas de la ciudad.
I'm going to pause there because I went through kind of the priorities we're facing with facilities and our next steps.
Voy a parar ahí y voy a continuar ahora. Ya hablamos de la agenda, de las prioridades, de las instalaciones y vamos a continuar con.
Excellent. So one of the first questions for facilities, is there anything our parent community can do to help and support the search for a forever home? The answer is yes, absolutely. I would say if, let's say, you know of an opportunity or facility that may be appropriate for for us to look at, never hesitate to send it along. Much of kind of what we're looking at now, there are changes in the market, and there may be opportunities that open up, and a lot of opportunities will never make it to the market. So absolutely send along things that may help us in our search.
Un padre de familia preguntó si la escuela está trabajando con la comunidad local y el gobierno local para asistir en la búsqueda de la nueva instalación. Y luego dice, no, esa no la han respondido todavía. La respuesta de Ryan fue que, por supuesto, pueden pues, si saben de algún tipo de lugar, el mercado siempre cambia, el mercado inmobiliario siempre cambia. La mayoría de oportunidades inmobiliarias donde podríamos ubicar nuestra escuela probablemente ni siquiera lleguen al mercado. Entonces, si tienen alguna sugerencia o saben de algo, todo eso es bienvenido. Nunca duden en darnos sus sugerencias.
Okay. Another question is there a concern that SFUSD may move the school again? And if so, is there a way to find another location? So right now, there isn't a great concern that SFUSD will move us. I think they have placed us in a location where we're able to stay, I don't want to say indefinitely, but to our knowledge, there's no plans to move us, nor is there any conflict with us being here.
La segunda pregunta dice, ¿hay alguna preocupación respecto a que el distrito pueda mover a la escuela otra vez? Y si la hay, ¿hay otra forma de encontrar alguna nueva instalación? La respuesta de Mr. Ryan es que por ahora no hay ninguna preocupación, hasta ahora no hay ningún conflicto y estamos agendados para estar en 940 Filbert Street.
And so they've kind of settled us into 940 Filbert Street, which with respects to stability is a very good thing. Our relationship with SFUSD has also significantly improved.
El distrito nos ha ubicado en este edificio y eso pues nos habla de cierta estabilidad. También nuestra relación con el distrito ha cambiado y ha mejorado mucho, considerablemente.
I would say that we've just received our, we have to go through a process by which we apply every year for facilities. We just received our initial offer from SFUSD with 0 changes to our current facilities, which is full use of the entire campus. So it gives you a kind of an idea of how kind of productive our relationship has become with SFUSD, where this process is just a lot easier.
Cada año se debe renovar como el proceso de la instalación de la escuela en este lugar, pero hasta ahora hemos recibido la noticia de que evidentemente el colegio continúa acá y que podemos utilizar las instalaciones que tenemos disponibles de la forma como mejor podamos hacerlo.
Next question, I think then we'll pause, is on the bus. We are, as I think we noted last year, our plan was to have 2 buses, and so we're moving into that plan for next year. We have 1 bus now. We are implementing 2 buses for next year. That had to do with not just the financial impacts of that, but also our capacity to kind of run 2 buses, which is a lot of kids to be shuttling to and from school every day.
La siguiente pregunta habla sobre el transporte y los buses, la cantidad de buses que tenemos en este momento. Para el próximo año probablemente estemos considerando en un segundo bus y pues las implicaciones financieras que eso tiene y sobre todo nuestra capacidad como escuela para poder desplazar y transportar 2 buses pues con estudiantes, cada uno de ellos.
And I see some other questions, and I can put some answers in the chat for those things that are pretty easy to answer. But I think we should move on because we've got other things on the agenda.
And just so you folks know, our note takers are getting all the questions. So the ones we're not able to get to in the moment, or we don't yet have answers to, we're documenting all of them, and we'll make sure we're getting responses out as quickly as we have answers.
Estaremos documentando todas las preguntas que tengan en el chat, así que si no son respondidas durante este tiempo en el chat o a través de la reunión, serán respondidas en algún momento.
All right, Ryan, I think this one is still you. So maybe hold on the chat for a second.
You mean
finances
right.
and fundraising?
Yes.
Attendance.
Woo, it's a lot of me. Okay, so finances and fundraising. We're going to start with a budget overview first, just to ground families in kind of where we're at as a school as it relates to our budget.
Ahora vamos a hablar un poco de las finanzas y la recaudación de fondos. ¿Cuál es el presupuesto que tenemos en este momento?
So we receive, we have a budget of approximately $9 million per year.
Tenemos un presupuesto de aproximadamente $9 millones por año.
We have, that's our expenses. We have revenues of a little over $9 million.
Tenemos una entrada de capital que es aproximadamente de $9.23 millones.
For our revenue,
Y nuestros gastos, I'm sorry, I kind of got confused. I thought you started with revenue, but you started with expenses.
I started with,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Nuestros gastos están alrededor de 9 millones, $9.07 millones, y ahora Mr. Ryan va a hablar de lo que nos entra.
So for our revenue, of that, 9.2 million, about 5 million, 5.7 million comes from public funding. That means what we receive from the state for every student we have in the school.
Y ahora cuando hablamos de lo que le entra a la escuela, del presupuesto que le entra a la escuela, hay dos fuentes. El primero es la fuente pública, la recaudación de fondos públicos, y la segunda es la recaudación de fondos privados. Ahí pueden, en la pantalla pueden ver la diferencia. Públicas es de $5.76 millones y privada $3.48 millones.
And about $3.5 million comes from outside of that state funding, including about $2.4 million in fundraising, which Emily's going to go into a little more detail in a bit.
Lo que hay que tener muy en cuenta de la recaudación de fondos privados es que esa recaudación se hace, esos 3.48 millones dependen de una recaudación de fondos de 2.4 que se hace en la comunidad. Miss Emily va a hablar un poco más de eso más adelante.
For our expenses, as you can see, the vast majority of it goes towards people. And that's, it's of the 9 million, it's about 6.4 million.
De nuestros gastos, la mayoría de nuestros gastos se va en nuestro personal y los beneficios de ese personal.
And then about, a little under 3 million goes towards all other expenditure. So you can see that, our school really prioritizes in its budget people.
Como puede ver, el resto es en otro tipo de gastos, pero lo más importante a resaltar acá es que nuestro presupuesto se enfoca mucho en la gente y en nuestro personal.
And if we go to that state funding, we really need to look at what makes up that state funding, which is really critical. It's first of all our enrollment, because we get paid for our enrollment, and it's, we'll get into kind of how enrollment is calculated. But our enrollment now is 438. I'll stop there.
La mayoría de nuestra financiación depende también de la inscripción de estudiantes. Nuestra inscripción de estudiantes actual es de 438 estudiantes.
Our maximum enrollment, we believe, in this facility, looking at what we think is the maximum size for any grade or any class, is 468.
El cupo máximo de estudiantes, teniendo en cuenta las instalaciones y el edificio donde nos encontramos en este momento, es de 468 estudiantes.
To calculate what we receive in public funding, they take what's called the average daily attendance. It's not just a certain amount of money for each student. It is that, and it's times your attendance. So if we had, so basically you look at our ADA looks at 438 students times our attendance rate, which is now 92%. And that gives you your ADA, average daily attendance. And this is, it's based off an average throughout the year. So it's not just that 92. We're looking at for the year, about 413.6. That's what we're estimating for our ADA.
Nuestra financiación estatal no necesariamente depende de la inscripción actual de estudiantes, sino que depende de la asistencia promedio de nuestros estudiantes, es decir, la relación entre inscripción y asistencia. Y la asistencia diaria promedio está en 413.6. De ahí depende nuestra cifra para la financiación estatal, que es de aproximadamente $10,000 por cada estudiante.
And so while we have 438 students, we receive $10,000 per ADA for 413.6 students.
Por cada EDA actual se recibe $10,000 por estudiante.
I think it's also worth noting pre-pandemic, our ADA was closer to 97, 98%, depending on the year. And so you can see a real impact based on just the number of COVID cases we have, kids out of the building being sick, people are more cautious, and yet the state has not changed the funding formula to reflect that.
They haven't changed it for charters. They've changed it for They've changed it for traditional public schools and districts, but that's a loophole we're trying to close. But you're absolutely right, and that's why attendance is still incredibly important for everyone, and the challenge we face in terms of wanting kids to be here, but also wanting to make sure that kids stay home when sick.
El promedio de asistencia no ha cambiado aún para las escuelas charter como nosotros, y pues eso ha tenido un impacto en el presupuesto. Si bien para el distrito y las escuelas públicas ha cambiado porque se ha tenido en cuenta aspectos como los casos de COVID, de las personas que se deben quedar en casa, los estudiantes enfermos, para nosotros todavía eso no ha cambiado, y por eso es que el cambio del porcentaje se ve un poco diferente. Sin embargo, pues nosotros estamos enfocados en que los estudiantes asistan, pero también preocupados porque las personas que estén enfermas y deban quedarse en casa, se queden en casa.
Right. All right, so fundraising. So of the private funds, 2.4 million of that comes from fundraising efforts. So our work to ask other people to help support our students, our families, and our staff. Of the 2.4 million, this just shows the breakdown of where that funding comes from. You'll see the overwhelming majority comes from grants, so foundations, institutional and local foundations that support our work. A lot, almost 1 million, comes from individual donors, so people that Ryan and I have built relationships with over the years or knew before we launched New School that continue to fund our efforts. And then a significant portion, about 350,000, is raised by our families here.
A continuación podemos ver nuestras fuentes de financiamiento, específicamente de la cifra de $2.4 millones que veníamos hablando de ahorita. Acá en esta pantalla pueden ver cómo están divididas esas fuentes de financiamiento. Por un lado tenemos los subsidios, por otro lado tenemos los donantes privados, que son todo este tipo de relaciones que hemos construido con otras personas, entre Ryan y yo, Emily. Y por último, una gran parte de eso también viene de las familias que pertenecen en este momento a New School. Los valores los pueden encontrar acá en la pantalla.
I think it's important to say, so everybody is aware, this number is extraordinary. Raising $2.4 million annually is not sustainable for our community. We are incredibly lucky and grateful that we have some really committed donors, but we work exceptionally hard to raise every single dollar that comes into our school. But over time, we cannot be raising $2.4 million in operational funding year upon year. So part of the work of increasing enrollment, looking at attendance, and overall finding a bigger building and having more kids will ultimately help drive down the need for this amount of fundraising every single year, because we just can't keep doing this.
Uh-huh. Como pueden ver, el trabajo que hay que hacer para poder recoger 2.4 millones es un trabajo que requiere de muchas operaciones y muchas personas trabajando alrededor de esto. No es algo que podamos sostener por mucho tiempo, por eso hacemos mucho hincapié en la inscripción, en orden para poder tener más recursos estatales, pues necesitamos más inscripción, y por eso también está relacionado a la necesidad de crecer en otro establecimiento y en otra instalación.
Here's our progress to goal this year, where we are against that 2.4 million. We have just over $1 million left to fundraise. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th. We are cautiously optimistic that we will hit our fundraising target, but we have a bit of work to do over the next few months.
Como pueden ver, todavía hay un progreso, pero todavía debemos recoger fondos que nos hacen falta para nuestro año fiscal que termina en junio 30.
Going back to our families play a really important role, and we're incredibly grateful for the support that we get from many of our families here to help us close this gap. Of the $350,000 that we raised from families, we structure that in two main campaigns, one that you've already experienced and one you're experiencing now. So Stock the School was our first campaign that ran at the beginning of the year. And that raised money that went directly to our teachers. It goes into what's called Class Wallet so that they can buy books, Post-its, materials, things that they need for the classroom. The campaign running now is our bigger campaign. It's called our New School Magic Fund. It runs every year and it identifies a different priority each year to fundraise against. And so this year, the focus for our New School Magic Fund is to raise the money to support all of our specialist programs at New School. Our Spanish program, our arts programs, our physical education program, our middle school electives programs.
Ahora enfocándonos un poco en las familias y el rol que tienen las familias en la recaudación de fondos de nuestra escuela, hemos lanzado dos programas o dos campañas. La primera estaba referida a Stock the School, es decir, como a darle otro tipo de herramientas a la escuela, como todo lo que se necesita, como marcadores, colores, post-it notes. Y el segundo, que se llama New School Magic Fund, está referido a poder apoyar todos los programas de especialistas de nuestra escuela, como el programa de español, el programa de música, el programa de arte.
And so here's how we're pacing against the New School Magic Fund goal, which has a goal of raising, there's two aspects to the campaign. One is around overall participation. The state looks at our family engagement as one metric of kind of accountability that they hold us to. The second is that when I go out to other funders and ask for $1 million to the school, it's really incredible to say, and 75% of our own families also give to the school. So that 75% participation metric is incredibly important, as is the amount of just money that we bring into the school, given what we are trying to fundraise to support all the amazing things that we want for students, families, and our teachers.
Como pueden ver acá, el progreso del Fondo Mágico de Participación para dar fondos, pues se mueve también en relación con los fondos de las donaciones privadas. Entonces, la participación de las familias se ve acá en un 75%, que llama mucho la atención cuando ponemos esto en un contexto de la situación estatal. Cuando vamos a pedir por fondos al Estado, podemos decir, esto es como las familias también se manifiestan acá en nuestra escuela, como también contribuyen a los gastos. Y por otro lado tenemos las donaciones, que se refieren más a cómo todas estas relaciones externas nos ayudan a contribuir o a crear el fondo. Como pueden ver en el segundo gráfico, el naranjado no es tan grande como el de las familias.
Yeah. I'm going to pause for questions. I see a question that's related to fundraising. While investing in the future is very important, so is being able to offer all kids specials and experiences like field trips today. If we don't meet our New School Magic Fund goal, is there an opportunity to shift funds and priorities slightly to fund these things now and in the future?
Ms. Emily, where are you looking for that question?
Melissa Dubasic's question at 549 in the chat.
Okay. Si bien es importante pensar en el futuro, también es importante pensar en las experiencias de nuestros estudiantes, como por ejemplo la salida de campo de hoy. Si no llegamos a esa meta, ¿hay alguna otra oportunidad de cambiar otro tipo de fondos y priorizar este tipo de cosas ahora?
Melissa, the short answer is yes. One thing, the good news is we've never not hit our fundraising target. We are experienced fundraisers. We have a lot of fun doing it. And again, we have people that are really deeply invested in our work. So when I say I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll hit our fundraising goal, we will do it. That said, every month we look at cash flow, we look at where we are against our fundraising, and we do reallocate things within the budget to make sure that we are prioritizing the most important things first. And that means people. So people will always come first. And yes, we reallocate and shift. And sometimes things come up in the course of the year that we didn't anticipate, but that we want to fund. And so that, again, necessitates reallocation within the budget, which we're doing constantly over the course of the year.
La respuesta corta para eso es sí. Cuando las prioridades se mueven, entonces pensamos en qué tipo de presupuesto debe ser destinado para algún tipo de actividad o de situación en específico. Nosotros priorizamos a las personas y a las experiencias, entonces la respuesta es sí.
Ryan, there's one question around that was connected to the bill in Congress. I don't know if you have an answer, if we want to hold on that one. That will change the funding no longer based on ADA?
Yeah, I think that there's something to kind of close the loophole that's now impacting charters around how they're calculating ADA specific to the pandemic. So I don't know if that's going to be successful, but what we're hoping for is that charters will be treated like traditional public schools, and that will make a significant difference in terms of raising our ADA for this year.
Hicieron una pregunta respecto a lo que se está hablando en el Congreso sobre la situación de las charter schools. La respuesta de Mr. Ryan es que pues estamos esperando a ver qué sucede. La idea es que si cambian ese porcentaje de 88 y que las escuelas charter sean tratadas como escuelas públicas tradicionales, pero pues estamos aún a la espera de eso.
And then longer term, yes, there's a push to go away from from ADA just to pure enrollment. And I don't know where that's going to go. The reason they switched to ADA is because it wanted to incentivize students being at school instead of just students being enrolled in a school. And I think we could all agree that the more the students are in school, the better learning outcomes are going to be. So I don't know where they're going to go. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate, but I think I think it's certainly on a lot of people's minds.
Definitivamente sí hay como cierto tipo de empuje sobre cambiar la legislación respecto al porcentaje de ADA y la cantidad de dinero que recibe la escuela, pero pues todavía no hay como una respuesta absoluta, depende mucho del debate y de cómo suceda eso. Lo que hay que resaltar acá es que pues esta forma de darle fondos a la escuela a nivel estatal depende de la inscripción y está muy relacionado es porque el Estado quiere que los estudiantes asistan a la escuela y estén en la escuela. Si cambia o no, pues aún estamos como a la espera de eso.
Great. I want to appreciate, I see the feedback in the chat around how many questions are still around facilities and busing, and we could have had a whole hour and a half call just on that. I agree. So thank you for naming that, and know that we can create more opportunities to dig in even more deeply on facilities, and perhaps feedback to Ryan and I that we are overly ambitious, but we wanted to make sure we touched on all of our big areas of focus.
Quiero apreciar todas las preguntas y los comentarios que tienen alrededor de encontrar una instalación. La idea también es poder recolectar todas esas preguntas y responderlas o recoger todas sus sugerencias y poder indagar un poquito sobre ellas, pero por ahora nos queremos enfocar en la agenda y lo que tenemos en la agenda.
Emily, I would love the opportunity. You know it. I'd love the opportunity to talk more about
facilities. Yes.
Oh man, I'm serious. I would. So look out for more opportunities.
We can talk about all those things for hours and hours. So yes.
Nos encanta la idea de poder hablar sobre instalaciones y podríamos hablar horas y horas y horas, pero queremos enfocarnos en el tema y la agenda que tenemos en este momento.
So in summary, what we're focused on in terms of our fundraising and finances is increasing enrollment, making sure we hit our enrollment targets for next year. We continue to raise attendance while keeping sick kids home from school and hoping this bill makes its way through the state in our favor, and raising our additional just over $1 million that we need to hit our goal for this year, and staff sustainability, which is going to take us into the next section.
Ahora, ¿en qué nos estamos enfocando? En, primero que todo, alcanzar la inscripción total de estudiantes para el año 2023-24, aumentar la asistencia escolar, pero al mismo tiempo cerciorándonos de que todos los estudiantes que estén enfermos se queden en casa y se recuperen de la forma que deben antes de regresar a la escuela. Segundo, poder hacer la recaudación de fondos y llegar a nuestra meta, que es de 1.15, que es el restante de lo que debemos recaudar este año. Y por último es la sostenibilidad del personal, que es el próximo punto que trabajaremos en la agenda.
And to connect the dots of why staff sustainability is under fundraising and finances, if that wasn't completely obvious, this is, again, our highest expenditure as a school. Our people are the bedrock of our organization. They make New School magical. And one of the things that makes this work incredibly unsustainable is the high cost of living in San Francisco and how low we pay educators in our country. So we are doing as much as we can as an organization to continue to increase base salary as much as we possibly can, while ensuring we are running a financially sustainable organization.
Sí, no se hizo obvio la relación entre la sostenibilidad de nuestro personal y precisamente nuestra recaudación de fondos, es porque la relación entre nuestros maestros, que es los que crean toda esta dinámica que hace New School, es muy importante, teniendo en cuenta también que San Francisco es una ciudad muy costosa para vivir, y segundo, hay una relación también con lo mal pago que son en general los maestros en el país.
Great. So people, so we experienced our highest rate of attrition last year. As many people have been with us, witnessed, we said goodbye to some amazing people. We also got the opportunity this year to welcome some new amazing people. But we have been doing a lot of listening, both in the form of all the exit interviews we did with our staff who transitioned last year. We look at all of our data and feedback from our staff and our climate survey, feedback that comes up through grade level meetings, through managers, to really understand kind of what are the root issues around what makes it so challenging to be an educator, and specifically to be an educator at New School San Francisco.
Como pueden ver, el año pasado tuvimos una situación un poco fuerte o dificultosa a raíz de la cantidad de maestros que se nos fueron, pero nos estamos enfocando en entender cuáles son las necesidades de los maestros, entender por qué es tan duro ser maestro, cuáles son las situaciones que los llevan de pronto a no seguir en esta profesión y, nada más.
And so, as I said, while we know money matters, and that is one of the most important things we can do to keep our staff here, we are also looking at other things that make this work sustainable. We have an internal committee called the Sustaining Educator Excellence Committee that is in line with that priority. If you remember back from that first slide you saw. And that committee sits and works alongside our internal compensation committee as well, and our leadership team, in terms of looking at kind of what are the pain points, what are the themes and feedback emerging, and what are the key shifts that we need to make as an organization to ensure we attract the most amazing people, we keep them here, and they feel satisfaction and joy coming to work every day.
Entre las cosas que nos enfocamos es precisamente en discutir esto a través de los comités. Tenemos el comité interno de compensación, tenemos el comité que se encarga de que nuestros maestros puedan crecer, y como el dinero pues importa para todo este tipo de procesos, también nos enfocamos en el incremento de esa paga, cómo podemos hacer y tomar decisiones alrededor de eso y poder garantizar que nuestros maestros tengan lo que necesitan.
The big themes emerging that we are focused on, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse into the ground, but I'll say it again, increasing pay. And that's not just teacher pay, that's for all staff and employees in our school. is increasing opportunities to learn and grow. When people feel challenged and supported, they tend to like where they are and want to continue to be kind of motivated and inspired in what they do. So whether that's planning time and collaboration within the context of the school day, that's getting outside the building. We took a team of 6 educators down to Los Angeles last week to see different schools. It was incredibly inspiring and grounding. But those types of opportunities to connect us to the bigger picture, to keep our kind of, wheels turning in terms of learning and growing are really, really important.
Por eso es que nos enfocamos también en construir espacios donde los maestros pues se vean retados, puedan tener diferentes oportunidades para aprender, ya sea también relacionado con el tiempo para planear sus clases, para poder desarrollar su currículo. La semana pasada estuvimos en Los Ángeles, 6 de nuestros maestros fueron a visitar y a reconocer otro tipo de experiencias relacionadas con nuestro currículo y la indagación. Entonces, como pueden ver, se concentra en diferentes aspectos que van a ayudar a que nuestros maestros puedan sentirse retados y sentirse cómodos en su lugar de trabajo que sería en school.
And then the last big theme is around our systems and structures, right? So whether that's the systems and structures of how I plan a unit, or how do we collaborate and come together with the diverse learners team and the 3rd grade team? How do we ensure the way in which we do our work feels efficient, student-centered, and we are not recreating the wheel as we enter our 9th year next year? We're starting to kind of, hopefully in many places, move out of what has felt as we've grown each year and added more kids, that we are constantly in startup mode and kind of redoing things. And then throw a pandemic on top of that, where we had some really strong systems and structures, they broke down, and now we have to rebuild them.
Ahora nos encontramos también en desarrollar cierto tipo de sistemas y estructuras y también nuestro currículo para poder pues garantizar que nuestros estudiantes también alcancen esas metas esperadas. Nos hemos movido mucho y pues ese movimiento implica cambios y nuevas adaptaciones. La pandemia, por ejemplo, fue una de esas situaciones donde nos obligó a los maestros a poder adaptarse a cierto tipo de sistemas y de estructuras. Entonces, todavía estamos en ese proceso de desarrollar esos sistemas y de reconocer cuáles son las estructuras que funcionan.
I see one question in the people bucket. I see Amy appreciating the inquiry trip, and thank you to the parents that help support with the miles and the hotel points to allow us to experience that. Chad's question is housing challenges for teachers still an issue?
Otra de las preguntas que tenemos en nuestro chat es aún encontrar casa para nuestros maestros una situación o un asunto a tener en cuenta?
I think in a city as expensive as San Francisco and an area as expensive as the Bay Area, it will always be a challenge. So again, one of the things that we can do is try to increase salary as much as possible. Our other long-term big dream was to build our own teacher housing as part of our long-term facility. Depending on where that lands and how that shakes out, that's still something we have a lot of interest in. And we have discussions with a number of funders who are interested in teacher housing. But at this point in time, that's not a project we're taking on at the moment.
La respuesta para esa pregunta es en el área de la bahía, eso siempre va a ser un reto poder pues garantizar casa para nuestros maestros, pero evidentemente por eso una de nuestras prioridades es incrementar la paga de nuestros maestros. En algún momento en el futuro hablaremos un poco de poder tener un programa que garantice casa para nuestros maestros, pero eso hace parte de una planeación más larga y de que nuestros fondos puedan dar lo suficiente para eso, pero todavía eso se ve en el largo plazo, aún no tenemos considerado.
Are there other questions in the realm of our people?
Hay algunas preguntas alrededor de nuestro equipo de trabajo, nuestras personas acá en la escuela.
Melissa, I think your question is a little connected. I'll take it. Will we continue to keep a lower teacher-student ratio with higher enrollment? We are not planning to change the staffing model for kind of our general staffing model for K-5 and then for middle school. What I will say is we are under enrolled right now. So we did not hit our enrollment targets this year for kinder. Ryan, you know the other grades, or Pina, if you're on this call, what other grades we didn't hit our enrollment target. So we don't see this as like going above and beyond. When I say we hit 460, that's the expectation of where we wanted to be even this year.
Yeah, there are a few questions actually we skipped over. So if we go back to budget, there was around enrollment. Our enrollment will increase from, as Emily said, from 438 to about 460. That does not mean adding a class. What it means is that we will be enrolled at 48 per grade, K through 5, and roughly 60 in grades 6 through 8. When I say roughly, there will be some flex, but we really do want to hit that 460. We've experienced attrition over the last, or more attrition in terms of students over the last couple of years than we ever have, much like what we experienced with teachers. The majority of that has been families moving outside of San Francisco, and always is tricky in terms of hitting enrollment targets after you've entered into the year. In many cases, we might have wait lists outside of kinder, and we can discuss that a little bit, but we have wait lists, but have chosen not to backfill due to just the lateness of transitioning a new student into a grade.
Ok, una de las preguntas que hicieron en el chat fue también relacionada con si continuaremos manteniendo el nivel de estudiantes y el radio de profesores cuando estamos pensando también en crecer a nivel de inscripción, y la respuesta es que no estamos intentando cambiar nuestra forma de nuestro radio, es decir, el modelo de coenseñanza, pero de lo que sí hablamos es de pasar de 438 a 460 estudiantes, porque esa pérdida que estamos teniendo estudiantes o no hemos llegado a ese número de inscripción deseado es porque muchas de nuestras personas de nuestra comunidad se han ido de la ciudad, se han movido. Entonces, cuando pensamos en poder llenar esa capacidad de inscripción, es también teniendo en cuenta llenar esos espacios que hacen falta de estudiantes desde preescolar hasta octavo.
One of the bright spots of where we are now with the pandemic is, you've seen, if you've been on campus, like on Fridays, you've seen the tours that are happening with prospective families. We are now out and doing face-to-face recruitment with families. This gets back to one of our real strengths as a school, which is being able to forge, strong relationships with prospective families to really pull them in and make sure that we are having a really high success rate or accept rate when we go through our lottery.
Una de las cosas positivas que podemos decir es que hemos tenido muchas oportunidades para establecer nuevas relaciones con futuras nuevas familias. Eso lo pueden ver ustedes en los tours que hemos dado, en la presencialidad que ahora podemos tener al momento de encontrar familias y encontrar estudiantes. Entonces, eso es una de las cosas positivas que hasta ahora tenemos.
Sorry, I lost the share for a minute there, folks. All right, are we moving to the next section, or were there other questions on the teacher?
There were just 2 at the bottom of that list.
Great. Okay, Stephanie's here. Have there been specific questions asked to the staff on how parents in the classroom can support teachers better or differently?
¿Han habido algún tipo de preguntas específicas referidas a cómo los padres puedan apoyar a los profesores de una mejor manera o de forma diferente?
Stephanie, I appreciate and love that question. I wonder if there's a teacher on this call, or if Ms. Camila, you want to answer that.
Well, my experience is kind of different because I have like a bunch of different, I move a lot. So I see 200 plus kids. So it's like really hard for me to try to I'm still building relationship. In fact, I just went to 5th grade. I've been teaching them for already 4 weeks, I think. So I feel like my relationship is different, but I think we need to ask a lead teacher. Pienso que debemos preguntarle a un profesor líder, porque yo me muevo dentro de todos los salones, entonces la relación que yo formo con los estudiantes es un poco diferente y también con los padres, entonces pienso que esa pregunta debe ser para un profesor líder.
What we've heard over the years is we love it when parents are engaged and help us do things. So whether that's being a room parents add a lot of capacity and value to the classroom, coming in to volunteer, organizing libraries, doing some photocopies, any extra time that families have to give to the classroom and learning environment is always incredibly appreciated.
Una de las cosas que sí podemos resaltar es que nos gustan mucho los padres voluntarios, padres que de pronto puedan venir a sacar copias, padres que puedan estar ahí para poder apoyar los procesos de aprendizaje que se dan en el aula, siempre son muy bien apreciados.
And then just another shout out for today. Thankful Thursdays are amazing. Educators love to be fed. And then we like to say, we're just like Google. Look, we had lunch provided today. It's amazing.
Muchas gracias, de verdad, estamos muy agradecidos porque hoy fue el agradecimiento de jueves y tuvimos mucha comida y fue genial, mejor dicho, estamos felices, es como si fuera Google.
And then I'll elevate what Ms. Niffler Ann wrote in the chat, which is just the encouragement and thank you. I know so many parents, we deeply appreciate our educators, but sometimes we forget to just pause and say that to them directly.
Y solamente para resaltar un poco lo que Ms. Niffler compartió en el chat, y es que pues a veces tenemos un día muy agitado y se nos olvida como pausar un momento y agradecerle a nuestros educadores. Entonces, muchas gracias.
Right. Deepa, I see your question. I think we're going to get to it in this next section, so I'm going to come back to it, but I'm going to take us into our last area, which is program. See if it moves. Great.
Ahora vamos a mover a nuestro próximo punto en la agenda sobre el programa.
Great. So program, again, our big organizational priority, we're thinking about both the building of new programs and the rebuilding of programs that kind of took a hit or we had to do differently over the course of the pandemic.
I'm sorry, Ms. Amel, I'm trying to find the other slide over here, so just give me 1 second. Okay. Otra de nuestras preocupaciones también es enfocarnos en construir ese programa que necesitamos, esos diferentes programas que necesitamos alrededor de la escuela y para poder enfocarnos específicamente en ciertos grupos, como sería la escuela elemental y la escuela media. Entonces vamos a hablar un poquito de eso.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest learnings over the course of the pandemic, I think it was understood, expected, things changed in the course of the pandemic. We went from being in person to being virtual, to being hybrid, to being back in the building, but being 6 feet apart with masks on. So that the difference we felt of what teaching and learning felt like, what our community was able to do, there was a shared understanding and kind of a grace and this was going to be different. And now I think as we remove, get further away from kind of the epicenter of the pandemic of, spring of 2020 and move further away, there's a bit of an expectation. And I myself held one that we just put it back together again, right? We knew how to do some of these things. We were doing inquiry at a really high, beautiful level. So we just bring it back. And I think one of the biggest, again, learnings and something that's been incredibly hard to grapple with, it just doesn't work that way. It's not as easy as taking kind of the blocks and restacking them in the way that they were stacked before. We have new people in our community. We have 150 more students than we had before the pandemic. We have many new staff members that weren't here pre-pandemic. So there's no going back to what we used to be. And we're learning more about ourselves and who we aspire to be and don't necessarily want to do all the things exactly how we did them before. And so in this bucket of rebuilding, you see a lot of the things that are core to who we are. Often we hear this phrase, new school magic. But new school magic is the people that make all of these things come to life for children and families. Inquiry, right? Present in hallways, throughout classrooms, the way students engage and ask questions. our commitment and our active work to be an anti-racist organization and anti-racist students and leaders, building back up our Spanish program, right? The joy and culture in classrooms. Yes, you, Camila. All of this takes real intentionality, care, and time to rebuild these aspects that are so foundational to who we are, but they don't just come back like that.
Algo para tener muy en cuenta es que nos estamos reconstruyendo. Venimos de una pandemia. Después de la pandemia, hemos tenido alrededor de 150 más estudiantes. Entonces, ha requerido que muchas cosas de las que sabíamos antes ya no las sabemos porque ya no nos funcionaron. En la pandemia aprendimos a dar clase a través de la virtualidad, pero ya nos movimos de nuevo a la presencialidad, y como muchas de esas cosas que pusimos juntas una sobre otra ya no funcionan de la misma forma y no se dan igual. Cuando hablamos de la magia de New School, hablamos de cómo trabajamos nuestro currículo a través de la indagación, cómo reconstruimos nuestro programa de español, cómo nuestros estudiantes hacen preguntas en el aula de clase, cómo nos construimos como una escuela antirracista. Todo esto ha requerido ser reconstruido y reconstruido en la medida que llegan nuevas personas, llegan nuevos educadores, tenemos nuevos estudiantes. Entonces, hace parte de esa reconstrucción y esa volver a pensar y volver a reflexionar sobre lo que teníamos, lo que había antes de estar en la pandemia y lo que estamos construyendo en este momento.
So at the same time, we're doing all that very like intentional hard work of rebuilding, and also with new staff members, we're also building. Our middle school program isn't built yet fully, right? It's still very much in startup mode. Our sports programs, our electives, our specials, how we transition students in 8th grade to high school. So we are doing a lot, all with this deep commitment to making this work sustainable, right, for our educators, so that we're keeping the amazing people we have who are all very, very committed to all of these things being true for our students.
I just wanted to remind people to please turn off their microphone so we can make it easier to hear. Quiero recordarle a las personas que tienen de pronto sus micrófonos abiertos que los cierren, por favor, para poder facilitar la interpretación. Miss Emily estaba diciendo que es una tarea difícil, es una tarea muy ardua que se hace para poder garantizar que todas estas transiciones y la construcción, por ejemplo, de nuestra escuela media sea pues exitosa. Al mismo tiempo estamos pensando en todos los programas de especialistas que tenemos, en garantizar que nuestros estudiantes de escuela media puedan transicionar a una escuela secundaria. Entonces todo eso hace parte de reconstruir ese programa.
And so Deepa, your question of how are we onboarding new teachers to New School culture? Let me go back and make sure I've got the question exactly right. What are we doing is a beautiful question, and I think that relates directly to this. We're doing a lot, and yet we still feel like we need to be doing more always. And one of the biggest things that often comes down to is just time, right? So even having this very precious 2.5 weeks of onboarding before school starts, it didn't feel like enough, right? It felt like we wanted weeks and weeks to dig into curriculum, build it, engage about what worked about this lesson, what didn't. What does it mean to develop a safe and supportive classroom? What is PBIS? How do we positively reinforce students who are modeling our behaviors? So all of that is to say, one of the biggest things is time. We try to be really, really intentional about how we use our professional development time. We've felt a bit limited this year insofar as just having the Wednesday afternoons for early release. And one of the things we are looking towards for next year is how do we increase the number of professional development days we have for our teachers to be in full learning mode, not at the end of a Wednesday when it's just a couple hours, but having more days throughout the calendar year to learn, to get out of the building, to see another school. So I have that schema. Oh, that's what inquiry looks like in practice. I can now see it so I can better understand how to bring that to life for my own students.
Miss Emily estaba respondiendo a una pregunta referida a cómo ahora con tantos nuevos profesores se garantiza que ellos reciban una inducción adecuada en lo que significa estar en New School y compartir esa cultura de New School y la forma como se enseña en New School. La respuesta para esa pregunta es, pues tenemos en cuenta el tiempo de inducción al principio del año, pero la dificultad siempre va a ser el tiempo. A veces el tiempo no es suficiente. En este momento contamos con los miércoles, cuando tenemos las salidas temprano de los estudiantes. Esas 2 horas son utilizadas para todo el desarrollo profesional, poder responder preguntas, pero también no podemos olvidarnos de esa oportunidad que tuvieron otros maestros de ir a conocer cómo funciona el método de indagación en otras escuelas, como pasó la semana pasada. Pero de nuevo acá, la cuestión es de tiempo. ¿Cómo podemos balancear o cómo incrementamos el tiempo que necesitan nuestros docentes para el desarrollo profesional? Siempre va a ser como la meta, intentar balancear eso y encontrar más tiempo para poder proveer de eso.
And then the other two big foci that are here are developing consistent and clear expectations. Miss Gabby and Miss Fensel are doing a lot of work to clarify and teach into what are the baseline expectations? What would we expect to see with regard to inquiry in a K-5 classroom? What would we expect to see in the hallway from middle schoolers? What is developmentally appropriate in terms of volume or engagement with other students? So they are doing a lot of work with our divisions around just developing a shared understanding and having very clear and consistent expectations for students and expectations for educators as well.
Otro de los ítems en los que nos enfocamos es precisamente en poder desarrollar consistencia, tener consistencia y tener expectativas claras para todo el personal y para toda nuestra comunidad acá, no solamente para los maestros, en la medida en que ellos se pueden mover dentro del modelo de indagación, pero también lo que significa, por ejemplo, para nuestros estudiantes de la escuela media, estar en los pasillos, cómo nos transportamos de un lugar a otro, cómo nos movemos en la escuela. Entonces, ese trabajo lo han hecho muy bien. Miss Gaby y Miss Esther se han encargado de mantener esa consistencia a través de toda la escuela.
And then the last one there connects to this idea of not building everything from scratch. And so we're researching different curriculum. We have a literacy committee looking at adopting a different literacy curriculum, both because that's best, it's really good for students, but also so that, again, we're not building everything ourselves. We're providing some scaffolds and resources to be able to pull from so that we can use kind of our mental energy and capacity as educators to focus on the places where we want to be more creative and innovative and take the work off of us. The places where we don't need to be, we have a curriculum to do that for us.
Otra cosa en la que nos estamos enfocando es precisamente en investigar ese tipo de currículo que nos va a ayudar a poder seguir creciendo como escuela y todo este tipo de herramientas donde los maestros pueden acudir a ellas. No es que lo estamos creando desde cero, sino que tenemos otro tipo de herramientas para poder hacerlo. Tenemos también un comité donde nos encargamos de pensar en ese tipo de técnicas o cosas que pueden ayudar a desarrollar nuestros programas de currículo.
Great. I am starting to lose my voice here. Ryan, do you want to, how are administrators focusing on building professional development and/or programming to support diverse learners, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic?
Otra pregunta referida a cómo nuestros administradores se están enfocando en crear un desarrollo profesional o precisamente planeando apoyo a todo este equipo de aprendientes diversos que tenemos, específicamente pensando en una situación después de la pandemia, como ahora.
I can help respond. This is Esther Fensel.
Thank you, Ms. Fensel.
You might hear my baby in the background, so just know that. So I'm Esther. I go by Ms. Fensel with students. I'm the middle school director, and I can share one concrete way that we're thinking about that in response to your question, Michelle. One thing we're focusing on in middle school professional development, so the middle school teachers, is the department, teachers in each department co-planning lessons together. So like the math teachers really looking at one lesson together, co-planning it, observing one person teaching it, and debriefing it. And I'll add more in a bit, but pausing here for you, Camila.
Thank you, Miss Esther. Miss Esther es la directora de la escuela media. Ella se ofreció a responder esta pregunta. Ella dice que una de las partes para responder esta pregunta está referida a planear juntos, como el grupo de estudiantes diversos planea en compañía, por ejemplo, de la profesora de matemáticas.
And so one way that we're going to focus on our diverse learners in that space, I've been talking to Dr. Tamara, our Director of Inclusion, of having our DLT, our diverse learners team members join those conversations. So it is our math teachers and our special education teachers talking together about a specific lesson, talking about accommodations, and doing that learning together so that we're building each capacity across teams to better support our students with IEPs.
La idea es poder crear una capacidad para poder soportar o apoyar a los estudiantes que tienen unos planes específicos de aprendizaje. He hablado con la doctora Tamara. Ella se encarga precisamente de poder colaborar para encontrar esas reuniones donde se puede hablar de ese co-planning, ese planear juntos para poder responder a las necesidades de nuestros estudiantes diversos.
So that's just one example, but a concrete one that's coming up very soon.
Ese es solamente un ejemplo, pero una respuesta específica va a venir muy pronto.
There are a lot of previous questions around facilities and busing we've discussed. We have a few, it looks like, budget finances, fundraising. We're covered a good amount on the people, which is great, and some of programs. We have a minute, so even though we can talk really fast, we're never going to cover them all. So maybe we finish up and just talking about kind of next steps for answering some of these questions or providing more time so we can get into some of the details.
Solamente nos quedan un minuto y sé que hay muchas preguntas relacionadas con recaudación de fondos, con preguntas específicas sobre los programas, pero pues podemos hablar en este momento de cuáles serían los próximos pasos para responder a esas preguntas o si podemos encontrar otro tipo de momentos para hablar o discutir sobre ellas.
So some of the questions we've begun to answer from the chat, I would say we will make sure that these questions are posted in our Q&A. I can't remember exactly what the doc is called. Is it called Q&A, Emily? Our Q&A, which lists, basically has all parent questions that they submit through the form, and then we answer those. So we'll make sure that those are included there and include a link to that to where those questions and answers live. When we send out information from tonight. The other thing is look out for other kind of maybe coffee chats or times to speak specifically about facilities and busing, because I know that there are quite a few additional questions. And we can keep that informal, but as another way of just answering some of the questions that have come up. And I'll make sure that I get out some time to do that.
Dos opciones que tenemos para poder responder estas preguntas. La primera es a través de nuestro formato documento de Q&A, que significa preguntas y dudas a través de la forma que respondieron. Y segundo es a través de los encuentros de café y conversación que se dan cada tanto. Ahí pueden hacer sus preguntas sobre las instalaciones y específicamente sobre transporte, porque he visto que hay muchas preguntas relacionadas sobre eso.
All right, so look out for information from tonight, including the recording and also notes. Look out for a link to the Q&A so that you can see answers to the questions that we weren't able to get to, and then also look out for some additional time around building and busing. With that, I want to just thank everyone for spending the last 90 minutes with us. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this community and also just to spend time with you. And I look forward to the next time we can do that.
Estén muy pendientes de todas toda la información de esta reunión, como por ejemplo la grabación, donde pueden hacer sus preguntas, sus respuestas. Fue un placer poder compartir con ustedes por 90 minutos, intentar responder todas sus preguntas y sobre todo seguir construyendo la comunidad que tenemos en este New School.
Thank you all. If you can take off your video and say goodbye, we'd love to see your faces as we sign off tonight.
Si pueden prender su cámara y decirnos adiós.
Buenas noches. Gracias. Good night.
Gracias.
Hi, Miss D.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
Chao,
Beth. Hi,
gracias.
Sonia. Hola,
Adiós.
Alejandra.
Buenas noches, gracias.
Buenas noches.
Thank
Adiós.
you.
Hi, Cheryl. Good night. Hola, Cristina.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Chao,
Buenas
chao.
noches.
Noches. Hi, Michelle. Hola, Cristina. Oh my gosh, my voice went, oh, I gotta stop recording.
Hola, bye.